Bakari Sellers, thank you so much for joining me today. Who Are Your People? A brand new children's book that just came out. Talk a little bit about the inspiration of this book. Was it your young twins, and what made you decide to write a children's book?
It was a book where I wanted to meet the moment. I think a lot of times we have to understand the moment we're in, where we're having tough conversations. I wanted to give people an opportunity to see themselves in the book, but also dream big dreams and understand that we have to rededicate ourselves to the proposition of dreaming with our eyes open.
Now, Who Are Your People is obviously a very famous phrase that that people in the South use as far as getting to know who you are and a little bit about your history. Do you remember a point when you were either a young kid or a teenager where someone asked you that question, or you asked someone that question, and it sparked such an interest in this topic? I can see you smiling already.
Yeah, no, I from age 6 when we were in Denmark, South Carolina, I was just moved there from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I was kind of a new kid, and people would be like, "Who are your people?" And I say, my daddy is Cleve Sellers, and they say, "Oh, you CL's boy, you one of them sellers. Your granddaddy used to own the fish store and the motel. You come from good stock, man. You come from good stock." So it's an opening question to help you get to understand the character, culture, and the roots of certain individuals. And so I wanted people to be able to ask themselves where they come from, and then be proud of it. It's okay to be proud of your story. It's okay to be proud of your family and your community. And then I hope others learn from it.
Oh, exactly. I think there's a point, growing up where you're trying to figure out your own identity and trying to, maybe separate yourself from your family. And then there comes a point where you become proud of that, and you become proud of the journey that your family has taken and other people in your community have strived to make this world a better place, and a better place for people who, who look like me, and people who look like you, and people who, have some type of a struggle. But to have this, inspired by your young kids, when did you have a spark, especially with the young twins, of like, I want to write a children's book, I want them to start asking these questions and to be proud right now?
For me, it started when kids change your world first, and then you got 2 of them, which means you ain't sleeping and you're trying to find different books, different things for them to watch, and everything was like blue people or purple people, respectfully. And I was like, let me see if I can write something and tell a story where they can see themselves. It's like Encanto. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the hottest thing in our household. It's the hottest thing in our household, and you see brown skin, you hear the music, you see the hair, and kids are able to say, "Oh my God, that's me." And so I hope when kids see or pick up this book, they can say, "Oh my God, that's me," and feel a sense of pride that they can too can go out and change the world.
Well, exactly. I mean, especially with that movie, and I don't want to get too off topic, but even like the toys that are with the movie, that it's not just the young boys and girls playing with one character who's they identify with the color of their skin, but they get to play with a whole cast of characters, and then not feel like you're just one part of it. Is you can be the whole story.
And that's this story. So I think that when people read it, they'll get a sense of pride, and when others read it, they'll get a sense of understanding. But at the end of the day, we challenge you. Like, how are you going to change the world? How are you going to be a part of this thing we call humanity, this world that we all live in? And if you're a parent reading it, I hope you ask yourself too, how are you going to change the world? And I hope people can see themselves in the strength and struggle and inspiration and hope that this book illustrates.
And one of the parts that I do love about it, I mean, I love the whole book, but is the message of people are rooting for you. Don't think that the world is against you. People want you to succeed, which I think a lot of teens, adults still have trouble with that message, but getting that instilled in a young child just lets their imagination go wild as to their full potential.
Look, you're never by yourself. We are a product of the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, which I talked about in the book. We're cheering from you. We're rooting for you, even if it's the ancestors. We want you to succeed. Nobody wants you to be a failure, guys. We all want you to succeed. And let's get out there and do it. Let's start working on this level of expectation again.
Oh, exactly. And I do want to ask a question about your dad and his work and working with Sidney Poitier, which I think a lot of people were able to hear those stories that, that you were sharing, but people only saw him as far as, what he did on screen, and not necessarily all the work that he did in real life.
No, Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte both utilized their platform to play a role in the movement. And, that my dad's interaction with Sidney Poitier was Sidney would bail them out of jail. Particularly the picture that you're referring to, as they were protesting the South African embassy in New York City. And it was John Lewis, my dad, Bill Hall, Whitley Ricks, and Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier came and got them out of jail. And that's the story. It's a lot like Jay-Z and Beyonce today. People don't know that. I hope I'm not, hope they don't call and yell at me. But a lot of times when you have these protests throughout the country, the people who bail you out of jail are J and B. And, it's similar at that time with Harry and Sidney. And so I wanted people to not just remember his art, but I wanted them to remember that he was a revolutionary as well.
That is amazing. And thank you for, sharing that part of the story with him, especially someone who got to grow up and hear these stories, firsthand. I do want to ask, as far as, young kids are going to be reading this book with their parents. They're going to be asking themselves these questions as far as voting rights and a lot of the struggles that are, we're seeing now. What are some things that, young kids can do now, especially, whether it's being part of like the school council or speaking up or reading? What steps can they take now so that when they turn 18, the world's a better place for them?
Well, we have the entire knowledge base right here on our iPhones, right? There's so much you can do, whether or not it's tweeting, whether or not it's writing, sharing your stories, calling your elected officials, running for office. There's so much that you can do. This democracy is participatory, which means you cannot let it go by without you actually being involved. And so young people are changing the world. I mean, look at the Parkland students. Look at the activism you're seeing in the grassroots right now. And I just, voting rights are the civil rights issue of our generation. And so I want people to push and push and push. Call your elected officials and call Joe Manchin while you're at it.
And the final thing I wanted to go ahead and ask you was your time in Chicago. You spent a semester here teaching at the University of Chicago. Tell me a little bit about that time here.
Shout out to the IOP, the Institute of Politics. Shout out to David Axelrod. It was cold as hell in Chicago, Illinois. But it was it was a beautiful city, so much richness and culture. We were over there in the Hyde Park community. I don't know much about Chicago. I'm a country boy. Chicago's huge. My hometown has 3 stoplights and a blinking light. But learning so much about Harold Washington, learning so much about where Barack and Michelle came from. And I have the utmost admiration for David Axelrod, who's one of the best minds, thinkers, and one of the most compassionate people I know. So shout out to the IOP.
But you said, you were here during the cold winter season, but one of the things we can do here during the cold winter season in Chicago is read and pick up your book, Who Are Your People? Bakari Sellers, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.